Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Come to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host,
Garrett K. Jones. How's everybody doing out there in the galaxy?
Well, everything here is fine, as you can see if you're watching us on YouTube or not, which you won't be able to see us if you weren't watching us on YouTube, but you'll notice that we are down a man. Brian is having trouble with one of his horses, not feeling good, so he will not be joining us today. We wish all the best to his equine friend. I don't know if that's a word. I don't.
Yeah, he had to see a man about a horse, as the proverbial saying goes.
Yeah. Or a horse about a man.
Yeah. I don't know how well that goes. So last week we talked about the Jedi and the lore surrounding the Order and their teachings and how effective they are at doing whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. This week, what are we talking about this week, John?
This week it is the second week of the month, so that means we are going to be doing our character profile, and today is Luke Skywalker.
Yes, Luke Skywalker, one of the original characters from Star Wars.
Yes, the OG. Other than Darth Vader, no, I was going to say he's the first character we see, but he's not.
No, the first character we actually see is Darth Vader.
No, it's C-3PO. The very first line of dialogue is C-3PO talking to R2-D2.
Yes. Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah,
that's right.
One thing I found and I was thinking about this when it comes to Luke, and kind of my fandom when it comes to Luke, is the ebb and flow of it. And I'm just wondering from your point of view. Oh, sorry.
You didn't lose me. I'm just
yeah. I saw something else pop in. I thought maybe Brian was joining us. I'm like, oh.
Go ahead. And what were you saying?
So when I was a kid, I think a lot of people do this. Luke is cool. Like, he's a Jedi. He's got the lightsaber. And this is like, when you're like, 8, 9 years old, Luke is so cool. Then as you get a little bit older, maybe Luke starts to kind of lose his luster, and you start gearing more towards Han. Han is the bad boy. Han is the rogue. He's kind of, he's cool. But then as you get even older, you really start to appreciate Luke even more. When you're like that teenage years, you may look as like, oh, he's too much of a goody two shoes. He's too bland. He's too blah. He's this. He's that. Oh, Han's where it's at. But especially me, as I've gotten older, I appreciate Luke even more. I don't know if you've had kind of the same journey with Luke.
No, so for me, my first exposure to Luke Skywalker as a character obviously was from Return of the Jedi, because that was the first film I remember seeing in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy because I was 1 year old at the time when the movie, a little over a year old when that movie came out. And so that's one of my fundamental memories. Yeah. But my parents exposed me to Star Wars really early on, because that was something I really enjoyed. I remember, like, every time we went to the library, I would borrow the copy of Empire Strikes Back on VHS, and I pretty much wore a hole through the ribbon of that cassette tape. And for those of you listening who are like, what the heck's a cassette tape? We used to have these things called VHS, where you had a cassette about the size of a book.
Yeah.
That would slot into a VHS or VCR player, and it would play. No streaming on demand. If you missed a replay of something, you missed it for good.
I almost said it was. I almost made the mistake of comparing it to a cassette tape. But then I'd have to explain a cassette tape. Yeah. And then that would have to, because then I could compare that to an 8-track, but then I'd have to have to say what an 8-track was, and it would just be a
Exactly.
whole thing. It would just be a
Yeah.
whole thing.
So I remember as a kid, like because Empire was my favorite of the films, and I think part of the reason why I liked it so much is because it starts off on Hoth, which is it's a ice planet. I was growing up in Phoenix, which is the surface of Mustafar on any given day. So anything colder than 127 degrees Fahrenheit was my cup of tea. But I remember on summer days like rolling around I had this scooter, not like the mini razor scooters that they have now, but like the big ones that had like actual handle brakes, and they were built about the same size as a bicycle. And that was my tauntaun. I had this hat with one of those curtainy type drapes behind it to cover the neck, and like I had some goggles that like swimming goggles, and I was rolling around. And that I was, despite the fact that I was in Phoenix, I was in Hoth, and so like I never made the association of wanting to be anything other than Luke Skywalker, because Luke was the guy who became a Jedi. As far as I was concerned, he was the hero, and it wasn't until a few years ago, and it was reinforced more recently by something that Lucas said at the Cannes Film Festival. But like, really, the ultimate hero of the story is Leia. Never connected that because Luke is he's the focus character. He's the primary character of the story, and while he does heroic things, that it's easy for that to make that connection. But yeah, I never fell out of love with wanting to be Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Although I did like going back and rewatching through the original trilogy, I remember he's a really whiny guy in the beginning.
That's kind of a Skywalker male trait.
Yes.
It's just they all are very kind of whiny.
Yes, they are. The Skywalkers are they like to gripe,
and they're very impetuous. That's another trait. They're always like, as Yoda would say, always looking towards the future. You are never on where you are, on what you're doing.
Well, I think part of that has to do with, Luke doesn't start off impetuous. Like, he's young, he's immature, and he really just wants to go to Tosche Station to get his power converters and hang out with his friends. But like, he's not as impetuous as other people. Like, like when you compare him to how Anakin was, he's not super impetuous, because like the first thing that he does where he is just on his own and kind of going about his business is where he is going out looking for R2-D2 after R2 runs away. He's not doing that out of some kind of rebellious act. He's not being impetuous when he does. He's being a little impetuous because he's not taking account of the risks, but he's doing it because it's his responsibility to look out for the droids. Essentially the way the droids are operating on a moisture farm is the same as cattle on a dairy. And so it's his responsibility to make sure that they're operating the way they're supposed to, that if they run away, he's got to go find them. Yeah. It's like the shepherd that leaves the 99 other sheep to go look for the missing lamb. And that's what he does. He leaves the farm. He leaves the other droids because they're busy doing their thing to go find this other droid that went missing. And it leads him, into a realm of adventure and trouble and all sorts of other stuff. But the most impetuous that we see him behave is in his immediate rush to go help Han and Leia and Chewie on Cloud City, I would think.
Yeah. Well, where should we start with Luke? Do we want to separate the Luke we saw? You said it before. Luke is the quintessential hero's journey with Luke. Yeah. The whole. starting out kind of wide-eyed and not, very almost in a way naive. He definitely starts out as a very naive person.
Well, and I think I don't necessarily think he's naive. I mean, he's naive about the greater galaxy and everything that's going on. He doesn't fully understand because he's
been living in a very isolated corner of this galaxy.
Yes. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's
I would say he's naive in the same way that any farm kid who grows up in a small town without ever having gone to the big city is naive.
Well, I think that's kind of I do think it's kind of a misnomer.
Yeah, maybe not naive is the right word.
And here's why. Because a lot of the times, in classic literature, one of the common misconceptions is that the person from outside of the country or from the countryside is just a bumpkin. They don't really know much about anything. Yeah. Whereas the person who's from the city is more sophisticated. I mean, we've got a whole parable about the city mouse and the country mouse for this very reason. They decide to swap lives for a few days, and they find that while the country mouse, he's a little bit more adaptable. It's not his cup of tea, but he figures his way around. The city mouse is completely lost. He has no idea what he's doing, and so it's that question of is the grass is always greener. With Luke. Yeah, he doesn't have a full understanding of the bigger picture of what's been going on, but it's not that he's not resourceful. He is he has enough of an understanding to know that going out into the Dune Sea, he needs to have some kind of protection from Tusken Raiders.
Right.
And he just underestimates how clever the Tusken Raiders really are because they circle around, they ambush him.
Yeah,
but he's clever. He knows enough about flying. He knows enough about technology to ask the right questions, which I think is one of the things that annoys Han, who's been flying for most of his life. But you get this sense that just because Luke is from he's from Tattooine, he's from this backwater, doesn't mean he's not capable of doing so much more. I mean, think about how quickly he rises through the ranks of the rebellion and goes from being just, a novice pilot to being a commander.
Yeah.
Within just a couple of years. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, let's kind of go into, I want to start talking about Luke's relationships with the different people that he comes around. And would it be fair to say that Han turns out to be his best friend?
I think it would be a fair assessment that he and Han are best friends. I mean,
I wouldn't say in the same way that Han and Chewie are best friends, because that seems more of a much, in as much as two people who are completely different species, and I'm guessing both heterosexual, can be soulmates. Han and Chewie are that intertwined with each other, they're blood brothers. Their relationship goes beyond just, we're best friends, we're good friends. No, they are they're as close to family as they can be.
And with Han and Chewie, I would definitely say there's a band of brothers mentality there, because they've fought in battles, they've done a lot of stuff together, they've helped each other survive.
I heard a great analogy. It was a comedian. He was talking about something else, but I think this isn't about Han, but I think it kind of gets to the gist of it. Han would die for Luke, but he would kill for Chewie.
Yeah, I think that would be a very fair assessment as well. But because I mean, you look at the nature of their relationship, because by the time you get to Empire Strikes Back, I mean, like the end of A New Hope, they obviously have a healthy respect for each other.
Yeah.
Because just when Han has the opportunity to cut and run and get out of there before the Death Star shows up, he actually turns back around, probably because Chewie threatened to throttle him. But he had that turn of conscience, and he was willing to help his friend because he knew that Luke was in trouble. He more than likely, and there's nothing to verify this, nothing as far as like novelizations or deleted scenes or anything like this. But more than likely, he was probably tuning into radio chatter, and comms chatter, and he probably heard that Luke was probably the last pilot out there. And otherwise, he would have been screwed. So he turns around, ambushes Vader and the TIE fighters, and gives Luke that clean getaway.
Yeah.
But if you look at the nature of their relationship on Hoth, while they have some banter back and forth at the beginning, the respect has gotten even healthier, and it's Han who goes out in person, braving the elements to find Luke, and does so at the cost of his own life, at the cost of especially his Tauntaun's life. And they make it back just days in advance before the Empire finds them. But then, he's tortured for information about Luke,
and he doesn't give him up.
He doesn't say a thing.
Yeah. But well, actually, no, because that's the thing. Because he even mentions they never ask him questions.
Oh, you're right. They
never, because he even makes the thing. It's like they didn't ask me anything. They torture me, but they didn't ask me anything.
And then
go ahead.
I was gonna say you get to
Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, and think about how the nature of that relationship has changed. Like Luke is the one who helps organize and trigger everything that goes into place with rescuing Han from Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
Because if you read through, I'm going to frequently come back to Shadows of the Empire whenever the opportunity presents itself. But in Shadows of the Empire, it is Luke who helps stage the rescue. Nothing kicks off until Luke gets there. Lando's already in place. Chewie and Leia get into place later on. The first thing that Luke does is he sends the droids. Everything is layered. And then once he shows up, that is when everything hits the fan.
Everything hits the fan. Yeah. Another really interesting is his relationship with the droids.
How so?
Well, especially R2. Like R2 quickly becomes his droid.
Right.
Very, very quickly. He seems to, especially with R2, treat R2 differently than of course R2 is a very unique droid in himself.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just
we
can do a whole episode on droids within the Star Wars universe.
We could. Yeah. Very easily. Because like you look at the nature of the relationship. Like I always, especially in Empire Strikes Back, I always looked at Luke's relationship with R2 as being like he's dealing with a pet or a small child.
Yeah.
Especially when they're in the swamp of Dagobah.
Oh, yes.
And like R2's just doing his own thing. He's like, hey, over that way. You're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I think the elephant in the room no, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, I was gonna say I think the elephant in the room with any of Luke's relationships, especially his positive relationships, has got to be Leia.
Yes.
Because that's the one that nobody really wants to talk about because it gets weird really quickly.
It can. I got into a little bit of a heated discussion with somebody on another Facebook page about that. Now, the other big question, of course, is did Lucas know from the very beginning that he was going to have them be twins.
There's some debate on that. Like I've heard different accounts that yes, he did, but then it's like, dude, why? If that's the case, then why did you have it why was it written in the way that it was, and you allowed that to go into place?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it is very, very awkward. And of course, there's a lot of questions with Leia and how she knew things that she was a literal newborn for.
Yeah,
but
a lot of retcons.
Yeah, a lot of them. I don't know. I liked. I don't even know where to start with Luke and Leia.
Well, they shouldn't have kissed, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I always justify that in the sense that it wasn't a kiss of him of like, oh, I got the hots for Luke. It was more of a, I want to piss off Han. I want to get under Han's skin, so I'm going to do this one thing to kind of,
yeah,
kind of irk Han a little bit. So, and so that's kind of like my mental justification for why Leia did what she did. Like the first kiss was more of just like a peck on the cheek, in A New Hope, and it's like, okay,
yeah, for luck.
Yeah, for luck. And the second one was more like, I just want to get under this guy's skin. And I know this is the one thing that would do it, is me smooching this other guy.
Yeah, that's still not kosher.
Yeah.
Especially in the long run. I mean, God, how do you explain that one?
I just want to see the deleted scene of Luke doing the
right, like that whole scene from Ace Ventura where he's like punching his own face.
That's the deleted scene I want to see.
Oh, yeah, that's so not right. I would say probably the thing that works best in Luke's favor is that while he is a Jedi, while he's trained to be a Jedi, he doesn't make the mistake of the Jedi Order of completely isolating himself from those relationships.
Yes.
It is while it is his Achilles heel to an extent, especially when it comes to the events of Empire Strikes Back, it is that love for his friends, for the people that he cares about, for the rebellion, that helps him accomplish the things that he accomplishes.
Yeah.
He realizes that if he really truly loves his friends, he's not going to allow himself to be manipulated like his father was.
Well, if you think about it, in a way, with Luke becoming a Jedi and the other, Obi-Wan, dying in the first, which I definitely want to get to that one. And then Yoda, he in a sense has a way to recreate the Jedi Order how he feels it should be. Like he has a clean slate almost when it comes to the Jedi. He has got the basic training, but as far as what this new Jedi Order will look like, he has the ability to start from scratch.
He does, and it would have been really cool if we could have seen that in film, like so here, and see, really, while introducing new characters is a good thing, a new generation of characters, that's great. Right. We need that, but the sequel trilogy should have focused on Luke in the process of building the Jedi Order, in episode 7, and coming to the point of the realization of what was happening with Ben.
Mm.
And that dynamic, that relationship of not just student and teacher, but nephew and uncle, because that's a very layered relationship that we get hardly anything of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you have episode 8 being listed as where the fall of Ben Solo.
Mm.
At which point you have
hold on.
From someone in the galaxy, probably wondering where you are.
Probably. Been getting the same call for a while now.
Are they calling you about your speeder's warranty being extended?
Yeah. Well, they keep saying that, Bantha, getting stepped on by Bantha is an act of the Force, and I keep disputing that.
Yeah, that's never pleasant.
No,
never pleasant. Remember, kids, only you can prevent Banthas from stepping on you. Make sure you know where they are. No, I think see the relation. Like, we got plenty of great relationship connections with Vader, with Luke, with Han. I mean, you have all these great moments that solidify the nature of those relationships. And I think that's the thing that made Luke such a strong character, is that he saw the value in those relationships even when other people didn't. Like, he believed in Han even when Leia was ready to write him off. He wanted to trust R2 even though C-3PO thought he was just a malfunctioning droid, and Owen was like, you don't go looking for Kenobi. He's crazy.
Yeah.
He was willing to trust Kenobi, even though he barely knew him.
Well, let's talk about his relationship with his first master.
Yeah,
Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's very much and I think this is one of the defining characteristics of Luke is trust. He instinctively trusts Obi-Wan. There are these people, people that come in that he either instinctively trusts him or he sees the good in everyone.
And I think that might be just part of his the previously mentioned naivete.
Yeah.
I think that's where he's most naive, is he's willing to see people for who they are.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, for as little as, and this is the one gripe. If I was to have one gripe about A New Hope, it would be about how quickly when Obi-Wan dies and the effect it has on Luke compared to when his aunt and uncle die, and he's just like, well, guess I'll be a Jedi now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
Yeah, it's like these were the people that raised you from the time you were a literal infant to now, who are now charred remains. And you're just like, well,
yeah,
to a guy you met a day ago.
Yeah, it's so random.
You're like, oh no, it's horrible.
But I mean, here's the thing. On the one hand, with everything that Luke sees upon meeting Kenobi,
yeah,
with being like, I mean, think about the rush of adrenaline that came from getting attacked by the Tusken Raiders, waking up in a strange person's house, then finding the Jawas on the way back home. It is just bonkers that he wasn't more shell-shocked by the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, there is definitely a disconnect between how he responds to Kenobi and how he responds to. But on the flip side of that, think about the way that Owen and Obi-Wan treat Luke, as far as what we see in just that film, not looking at the Kenobi series or anything like that. Owen is very strict. He's very standoffish with Luke, keeps him at kind of an arm's distance. Whereas, is it your TIE fighter this time?
Yes.
Yeah, man. They're always getting you on the TIE fighters.
Let me turn the volume off. Sorry about that, people.
But if you look at Kenobi, Kenobi's the opposite. Kenobi wants, like, he's completely open to talking with Luke. He was anticipating this opportunity to sit down with Luke at an earlier time, and it never happened. So his whole mentality is to be that father figure to his best friend's son in a way that Owen should have been acting.
Yeah.
Whereas Owen's just like, I want to protect this kid because his father is a menace.
Yes. Well, do we want to do his father, or should we do Yoda next? Because I think I
would say Yoda
too. Because it's early, the training that he gets in a way, he gets the Cliff Notes version of what the Jedi Order is from Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
He gets just the bare basics, and then it's Yoda who really gets in the deeper a little bit, the deeper training and the real nuanced of what it means to be a Jedi and what that all entails.
And I think part of that has to do with if you go back and you look at the experiences that both Obi-Wan and Yoda have in the prequels, it kind of helps set the tone for why they teach Luke the way that they do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously Obi-Wan's time is cut short, but like after the failure of Anakin, he's hesitant. Like, he wants to teach, he's eager to do so, but when he meets Luke and he realizes just how much like Anakin he is without ever having been around him, that scares him. Whereas Yoda is like, I'll teach him and I'll push him to the edge to see how committed he is to this.
Yeah.
Because Yoda says he's too old. He's too
too stuck in his way. Yeah. Yeah.
So which of those relationships stood out to you the most as far as like as an audience member and just in general how you perceive them?
I really liked his the growth of his relationship with Yoda.
Why Yoda?
I don't know. It was just Yoda's just such an interesting character in himself, and the way I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because we spend more time with Yoda as a teacher than we do with Obi-Wan. Through most of the movies, Obi-Wan is the friendly little Force ghost who hops in every once in a while to give a little bit of wise advice and then disappear.
Right.
Whereas with Yoda, you spend, especially in Empire, you spend a good chunk of the movie with Yoda. So that relationship really has time to build. And of course, the introduction of Yoda, of Luke having no idea who this little green creature is still one of the funniest scenes in Star Wars, of him rummaging through the backpack and the fight. And you have to know that R2 is like, dude, what are you doing? What? Why are you doing this? I know who you are.
And that's one of those moments where I'm like, how do Yoda and R2 not recognize each other after how much time they spend around each other in the prequels?
Yeah.
It's like R2, Yoda's probably thinking, okay, this is probably not the same R2 unit that I encountered in the Clone Wars. He's probably has memory wiped by this point. Nope, he has not. Meanwhile, Yoda's like, dude, you little green jerk.
Yeah.
Quit messing with my boy. Tell him who you are. Quit being difficult. Just teach him what he needs to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it also makes me wonder if when he got to the Lars homestead and he heard the name Skywalker, if he's like, what the heck?
Right?
What?
God, like just to have like some kind of translation software or subtitles for R2 anytime he's on screen interacting.
No, because then it would be rated. It would probably be rated R because
dude, right?
He's like beep, beep, beep.
The only character so vulgar they had to bleep him out the entire movie.
Yes. Oh, I have to show you this. I don't know if you've seen this before. He finally made it.
Yes, he got his power converters. That's awesome.
At first, when I saw that, it just cracked me up. I'm like, "Are you kidding?" And yes, Mark Hamill. Yes, that is something Mark would do. Well, let's just talk about Mark Hamill himself, the actor who played Luke Skywalker. And whereas other actors from the saga have at different times either embraced or shied away from that, not wanting to be, i.e., Harrison Ford for a long time. Mark has always embraced that role. He's always been, like he's understood that this was the role that put him on the map and that this is the role that he will always be known for.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting though. You look at who was originally looked at, because like when they were doing the casting back in the 70s for A New Hope, they were actually doing the casting call and the casting during the casting for the movie Carrie.
Yes.
So like Sissy Spacek read for the part of Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher read for the part of Carrie in the film Carrie, which would have been a little interesting considering how much of a Hellraiser she became. Yeah. But like looking at the other actors who read for the part of Skywalker, they had Robbie Benson, who went on to become a well-known, Broadway actor and singer, did the voice of the Beast in Beauty and the Beast for Disney. William Catt, who went on to stardom in The Great American Hero. He who actually was in Carrie, so he was cast alongside Sissy Spacek. But then Kurt Russell had also read for the part of Luke Skywalker.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I know that what's his Magnum PI.
That's gonna kill me. Not Ted Danson. I can't think of his name.
He was originally supposed to be cast for Han Solo.
And that's another thing.
He didn't get the role because he was shooting. They were starting shooting for Magnum PI.
Yeah, and so here I did a search for actors who almost played Han Solo instead of Harrison Ford. And I'll share my screen with you because I think this is going to be pretty interesting. Actors who were almost Han Solo. These include, doggone it. Let's see here. Okay, close. So we're looking here. Christopher Walken was one of the actors who was almost chosen to be
Luke. I did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
Yeah. It would have been so weird if he had gotten that. They also looked at Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, which would have been just interesting. Like
weird.
Like,
yeah,
Englund is a great actor, and like he does so well with like villainous roles because I've seen him play other characters. whether it's on in live action or animation. And so it would have been weird to see him in a more heroic type role. But they also looked at Burt Reynolds and Al Pacino, as you can see
Reynolds
right here.
would have been interesting. Although I think
Reynolds had the charisma for it, but he would have been too.
Reynolds took it too over the top.
I don't think he would have been over the top. I just don't think he would have had the serious. He would have taken it as seriously.
That's my
yeah. Pacino definitely would have been way over the top.
Yeah,
because that's just how he is. But then, they also were looking at Glenn Turman, and this is who Glenn Turman is. He.
I wonder if they turned that idea into Lando, because he looks like he looks like
he does. He looks
very much
like a Lando type-esque character.
Yeah.
So I think it's entirely possible of that being the case. But it's kind of neat, like, to think about that. I mean, even Sylvester Stallone had been looked at to play Han Solo, and Nick Nolte as well.
Yeah. Wow.
But like looking back at what
Scott Eastwood.
For the young Han Solo, I would have liked him. He would have been good.
That would have been a really interesting one.
He's a good actor, but like, some of the characters. So like we talked about, Kurt Russell and some of the others.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, Charles Martin Smith was almost looked at. He ended up going on to be in the Untouchables opposite Kevin Costner and Sean Connery.
Oh, that's a great movie.
He was also in American Graffiti, which is why he was looked at, because American Graffiti, as you know, is a George Lucas project.
Yeah, Lucas.
And then
William Katt.
And then Sebastian Stan was a more recent addition, especially when they were looking at The Mandalorian. Because if you look at pictures of Sebastian Stan and Mark Hamill when Hamill was younger, I mean, they could have been twins.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, it's kind of interesting that, like, the movies that almost were, or the versions that almost were. But ultimately, I'm glad that we got the version that we got with Hamill, because Hamill had the right. I don't know. It just, like, in my mind, there's nobody else who could play that character. The way he played that character.
Yes, and I think you could say that for all of the especially the main actors in, what we like to call, the Star Wars Trinity of Han, Luke, and Leia.
Yeah,
I think all of them were perfect. I can't see anyone being Princess Leia other than Carrie Fisher. And Harrison Ford as Han Solo is still.
Although I will say that Alden Ehrenreich, who played Han, a young Han Solo in the Solo film, I think he did a great job of trying to capture that charisma and that boyish charm that Solo is known for.
Yeah, and that's always a very, very hard thing to do, and not come off as it being either just a parody
or an imitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the other thing I really enjoyed, and this again, it's going back to the original films, is that Alec Guinness did such a great job portraying Obi-Wan that having someone else step into that role as a younger character or younger version of the character was really challenging. But if you look at what Ewan McGregor did throughout the prequel trilogy, and even with the Kenobi series, he studied Guinness's mannerisms so that as he aged into the role, he could reflect a version that was getting closer to what we saw in A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And I think that was a good choice on his part as the actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. I mean, do we have anything else to add?
We can talk about.
Yeah.
What?
We're kind of running running up on time. So and we haven't even touched his relationship with Vader.
No. We'll have to do that another time when we talk about Vader.
Definitely, yeah, because I think those two are ones that
they're kind of flip side of the same coin.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap things up, Garrett, why don't you tell the people out there what you have going on in your side of the internet and where they can find you at?
All right. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the War of the Stars. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing. I talk about my show The Right Way, which can be found on YouTube. I'm actually coming to the end of season 6, and I just had an episode come out this last Saturday. It was the last full regular episode before the season finale. I do have another episode coming out this Saturday. It's a live stream of a writing workshop that I will be doing at my local library. I do these once a month. This week we'll be talking about how to start the first chapter of your story if you haven't already done so. Or if you're starting a short story, how to start the story in general. But I will be coming back 2 weeks after that on the 27th for the second annual Writies Awards. It's awards I give to my guest hosts and my interview guests. And this guy right here, John Martali, he's actually up for an award for my best top 10 guest host. He guest hosted the top 10 segment for my May episode. So yeah, that's what I have coming up. Now, if you do want to connect with Brian, who is currently absent, you can find him on Facebook.com/TheSithLibrary and on Instagram at Corrosis. He is part of a group that does, they curate all sorts of cool Sith and dark side art and facts and trivia and stuff like that. You can catch them on Facebook.
Awesome. Of course, as for us right here, if you want to get a hold of us, you can do so at our email, warthestars1@gmail.com. That is also our handle on X, formerly Twitter. Or you can go us on Instagram at war_of_the_stars1. That is our handle on Instagram. You can also check out my other show, Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child, on YouTube. It's at SWChild, where we are going through the Clone Wars. And also, we are doing a little side thing where we are doing some Star Wars-based art projects that are going to be coming out soon. We just finished filming the first half of one, which will probably be up within the next few days or so. I'm not sure. My daughter's been under the weather with a ear infection, so.
Oh, no bueno.
Yes. Other than that, if you want to support the show, Ko-fi.com/War of the Stars. You can support us there, or you can also support us by doing our Spreadshirt.com/War of the Stars. Of course, War of the Stars, and to another extent, Star Wars: The Eyes of a Child are all a part of Geek News Now. Go to geeknewsnow.com or Geek News Now official on Spotify and YouTube to check out all of these shows that are there. That was it for this week. We'll be back next week with a little bit of a different episode. I will say this: be prepared. It's going to be interesting. With that being said, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
Poutini!
Well, that was fun. Who's up for Chinese?